This one I have mixed thoughts about, and as I go a little bit more into it, I'll tell you why I have mixed thoughts about this. This is according to MSN. Sorry, let me go back up a bit. Here we go. All these ads keep popping up in the way. This is ridiculous. I don't want to see all this. Alyssa Milano's financial status questioned after luxury vacation contrasts with GoFundMe page from January. The actress's financial status has been called into question after the star created a GoFundMe campaign to support her son's baseball team in 2023 and then took a luxury couple's vacation about a year later. She shared photos of the trip on her Facebook page in May, raving about the resort's next-level food and yummy cocktails. However, the expensive-looking getaway didn't sit right with fans who were quick to call out the actress for soliciting money from the public earlier this year to support her son. One person asked in the comment section, "Did you have a GoFundMe for this trip?" Now, let me do something right quick here. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, so just so we're clear, I just wanted to make sure that I got this accurate. Definition of solicit: ask for or try to obtain something from someone. Ask for, request, put in for, seek, beg, plead for, apply for. Okay, just want to make sure. Now, before I dive a little bit more into that, let me just say this. On one hand, it's like, and this comes from my left-wing liberal bias, that I do believe that I get the view where people say, okay, well, rich folks really don't need help from people because they got enough money, they can pay for it themselves. Multimillionaires, multi-billionaires. I think it was actually just last year, either last year or 2 years ago, where a lot of the public, especially the liberal and left-wing public, or maybe you can even say some of the right wing too, were giving flack to Dwayne Johnson and Oprah Winfrey because they were raising a fund for, what was that? Something that happened in, was that Maui or whatever, some other country that needed help or some area that needed help. And on one hand, it's like, I have reason to believe that both sides gave them flack because Dwayne Johnson and Oprah Winfrey are Democrats. So with them raising money for something, it's like, okay, I expect conservatives and Republicans to give them flack over that. Whereas if they were Republicans, it might have been a different story. But then on the other hand, of course, the liberals give them flack because they look at them and say, you guys are already super rich. Why do you need a $10 or $20 donation from us? Now, the thing that this is where I'm conflicted with, because there is a bias, because I am a fan of Alyssa Milano, because she is a liberal and Democrat, and because she's a liberal activist, and because she supports Democratic candidates. She supported Obama, Hillary, and Biden. I'm sure she supports Kamala. And also, I liked her work in Charmed, the good show. So I'm trying to think of how to even get this out. Like, I can't even figure out how to say this. It's like, on one hand, I get that. But on the other hand, the fact that I'm a fan of her has allowed me to defend her in the sense that there is no rule that says that rich people can't set up GoFundMes. They're allowed to do that. Now, that is a fact, and that's true, and I think any person could reasonably conclude that, be like, okay, just because you're rich doesn't mean you're not allowed to set up a GoFundMe. Okay, I get that. But it's like, yeah, you can do this, but based on the amount of money you have, you don't really need to. That's kind of where my conflict is. That's where I'm struggling at right here. Now, it says right here, what is Alyssa Milano's net worth and why is everybody mad at her? Back in 2023, she organized a GoFundMe campaign aimed at helping her son's baseball team fund a trip to Cooperstown, New York. Any amount would be so greatly appreciated. You can read more about the team and make a donation here, she said on Twitter, along with a link to the GoFundMe page. According to Celebrity Net Worth, she is currently working with a net worth of around $4 million thanks to her several successful TV and film ventures. I've seen some sources that say she was probably closer to 10 million at this point, but we'll go with 4 million just for the sake of this, just for the sake of the conversation. Let's just do 4 million. Now, 4 million, Alyssa Milano is an actress best known for her starring role in the beloved TV series Charmed. She was also a producer, an activist, and a mom. Okay, all this stuff right here, kids. She's got 2 kids, a son and a daughter. Some were quick to call her out, insisting that she should be able to fund the trip herself instead of asking fans to help. Okay, I can, again, as a liberal, I get that. I can see that. You're rich, you can do it yourself. And I think the goal was $10,000. And so I looked on the page and they raised over 15,000. So they had well surpassed the goal. So made a $5,000 plus extra. The comments on her original post have been limited, but screenshots of heated responses have since been shared. Let's see. One person on here said, just a reminder, Alyssa Milano and her husband are both multimillionaires. They could pay for the entire trip for the whole team without batting an eye, one person said on Twitter. But is it true? It's unclear just how much she actually has in the bank, and it's likely that fronting the bill for an entire team and their families to travel to another state would add up. It's also worth noting that the top donation on the GoFundMe page for her son's baseball team was $1,000, and it didn't come from Alyssa. In fact, she is not listed among the campaign's top donors at all. Is that the end of that? Is that it? Okay, and then there's a bunch of stuff here, a bunch of ads and... Okay, let me go to the other one. Let's go over here. So there was something I had seen over here, and I don't know where I just had it. Okay, let's go to this one right here, according to Medium. GoFundMe. Famous people might not be as rich as you think. Now, apparently this is supposed to be in defense of Alyssa Milano's GoFundMe. Famous people may not be as rich as you think. There was a bit of an online freakout in late January when the actress posted a GoFundMe to social media to raise money for her son's baseball team so they can go to New York, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. She said on Twitter, my son's baseball team is raising money for their Cooperstown trip. Any amount will be gracefully appreciated, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we've already seen that. A lot of people took exception to the idea that Milano, who starred in the popular TV series Who's the Boss and Charmed, would ask the public for money rather than pay for the trip herself. One stat was brandished in many of the reactions. Alyssa Milano has a net worth of $10 million. Now, I don't doubt that Alyssa Milano probably has more money than you or I do. But that said, we don't know the entirety of her financial circumstances or whether she has the liquid cash on hand to suddenly spring for her son's entire baseball team to travel across the country. We also don't know the interpersonal dynamics of the entire baseball team. For all we know, most of the parents of the kids on the team are richer than she is. And if that's the case, well, they're throwing all... If that's the case, then I will go so far to say, well, then that means that more of them probably should have thrown in donations too. If Alyssa was going to throw in donations, I'm not saying that she shouldn't have. I think part of me thinks that she should. All the money that you made over the years, and I'm sure she still gets her, what do you call that, where they get money from old shows and movies. I think that's called residual income. I'm sure she got residual income and she still gets it from Who's the Boss. I'm sure she still gets residual income from Charmed because that was a big show at the time. And it's still actually being talked about to this day. They covered it at the Fan Expo, all that stuff. Tribute to Shannon Doherty, all that stuff. So I'm kind of with it in that sense. Now it says right here, and another key you should know, celebrity net worth and its numerous imitators do not supply reliable, believable figures about how much money famous people have. It's not clear how they even could unless they somehow had access to every famous person's tax returns or something. Interestingly, that site now lists Milano's net worth at $4 million, down from the widely shared figure of $10 million, which is why I said, let's just do $4 million for now. Let's operate on that for now until further notice. The site does, however, detail something else about Alyssa Milano's finances. In 2017, Milano sued a former business manager who reportedly left her millions of dollars in debt and ruined her credit. She hired the management company in 2006 and terminated the relationship in 2016 after discovering that although paid handsomely, they did not competently perform any of the duties for which they were engaged or behaved in an honest, forthright, and truthful manner, per the lawsuit. Furthermore, she alleged that the management company allowed the cost of a home renovation to soar to $5 million. After the renovations, the home was worth $3 million. Alyssa Milano was under the impression that her finances were perfectly fine and turned down lucrative acting roles. But in reality, she and her husband were millions of dollars in debt. Her manager reportedly failed to make payments to the IRS in 2013 and 2014, which led to millions of dollars in penalties and unpaid taxes. She further alleged that the manager forged her name to make bad investments in things like a parking lot. In the wake of the financial problems, she apparently put her West Hollywood condo up for sale. She and the business manager settled out of court on undisclosed terms in June of 2019. Does this mean she may not be able to fund the trip? Maybe not. But it's also never quite a safe assumption that all famous people have instant access to unlimited liquid cash. All too common story. Okay, there's a little bit more and then I'll come. It's a common story among famous people, whether it's actors, musicians, comedians, athletes. Many of those people got stuck in bad financial deals, had large amounts of money stolen from them, or made a lot of money when they were young that didn't last until they were older. In music, especially if there was a band from your childhood that had one or two hits and none since, there's a decent chance they never made any money at all. And even if they did, it probably didn't last. She's an actress known for her liberal political views, including a lead role in the launch of the Me Too movement. So there are reasons to think that some of the backlash came from people still unhappy with her overall. There are two things that everyone must know. One, online lists of celebrities' net worth are very, very unreliable. And two, just because someone is famous enough for you to know who they are, it doesn't mean they have access at all times to independent wealth. Okay, so with that being said, what's your personal take on all of this? Now, do you believe all of that right there and saying, hey, she was left with this $1 million of debt? And if anybody had the perception of she's rich because of the shows that she did and because of some movie roles that she did, that just means that she has an unlimited amount of money, so therefore she should fund the entire trip. And the supposed rich parents of the kids that are, on the team, does that somehow switch to, okay, well, with that being said, I can see why she asked people for donations? One could say, okay, I can understand that perspective, and so now my view on it is slightly shifted. But then again, pair that with her and her husband doing these luxury vacations where they're having cocktails and having all these fancy meals and steak dinners and shrimps or whatever they were eating. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there. You pair that with that, and it's like, well, how did they afford to do that when you said you were on all this debt? Now, again, anybody can feel free to interpret it however you want. So what's your take on it and what's your opinion? Do you believe that, with all that being said, she still should have had some money to fund the trip? Or do you think that was the GoFundMe a scam? Was it a scam? Or do you think it was legitimate? Now, I don't really know, again, what much to think about it, because I told you, like I've repeated a few times and I'll say it again. At the end of the day, for me, it's mixed thoughts. Because on one hand, it's like, when we see celebrities, especially celebrities that have been around a long time like her, we just automatically think there's no way that you've been famous for this long and you don't have enough money to fund something like a baseball team, especially when your goal was $10,000. So, but then on the other hand, it's like we do have to acknowledge the fact that just because they are rich and famous doesn't mean we know every last detail about what's going on in their lives, whether it be personal or social or financial or even political, I would say, whatever the case might be. But that's that. So I've laid that all on the table, and you tell me what you think. I got more stories and more things to talk about coming up. Like and subscribe.